friends, in this video we will be dealing with the topic process of communication. Communication is a module which comprises of various aspects of communication like the types of communication, the barriers to effective communication, the process of communication, mass media and society, so on and so forth. And if you analyze the questions that are being asked from this module, you can understand that it is from a wide range of variety. That means they are asking questions directly from the theory part, and also there are application level questions, and there are another category of questions that are a combination of different areas like teaching aptitude and communication. So the questions will be based on classroom communication or the communication between the teacher and the students. So the questions also is from a wide variety. So what you can do about this module is just go through the concepts and theories that are discussed in this particular module and do some practice questions also like the previous year question papers. So you can get a good hold of the different concepts that are being discussed in this module, that is communication, and also you can understand the type of questions that are being asked. So we will be coming to our topic, that is the process of communication. Communication involves the exchange of ideas and information in the form of message between two or more persons. So communication is basically the exchange of ideas, and these ideas are in the form of messages, and communication takes place in between two or more persons. So this is the basic idea about the word or the term communication. So now you have a diagram here which shows the process of communication. In the process you have a sender who encodes the message and transmits or conveys it through a channel which is received by the receiver who decodes the message in order to understand that. So after understanding the message, the receiver is sending a feedback to the sender. And here you have another concept, that is noise. Noise is an interruption or disturbance that is caused during the process of communication that can happen at any level in the process of communication. So in this video we will be looking at each of these components in detail, and also we will be discussing about the various types of noise as well. The first component in the process of communication is the sender. So sender is the one who initiates the communication. So sender can be called as the source of the message. So the sender is either a person or it can even be a machine. Now we have the automated messages and all that, right? So sender can either a person or even a machine also. So the sender is the one who is initiating the communication. So as the sender creates the message, he is known as the source of message. For instance, if you are sending a message to your best friend that you are planning to go for an outing for the next day, so there you are the person who is sending the message, right? So you can be called as the sender. So that is the basic concept of sender. And here you have the things that the sender does in the process of communication. So the sender initially encodes the message. So the ideas and the thoughts that are there in the mind of the sender has to be transformed into a form that could be understood by the receiver. So that process of conveying or transforming the ideas and thoughts in the mind to a form that is understandable to the receiver is termed as the encoding. So the first step the sender does in the process of a communication is the encoding of the message. And the second thing the sender does is the selection of channel. So after encoding the message, the sender has to choose an appropriate medium or channel through which the sender could convey the message. So there are so many options. WhatsApp is a channel, email is a channel, YouTube is a channel. So there are so many channels or mediums through which we can convey the message. So sender has to choose the appropriate channel according to the context and convenience. Alright. So now we will be looking at the term encoding. So encoding is thus by the sender, and encoding is the conversion of an idea into a form. So the idea or the thought first comes in the mind of the sender, and the sender has to convert those ideas into a particular form that can be understood by the receiver. So that process is basically encoding. Alright, and at this phase the sender is also choosing the medium of communication as well. After converting the idea into a particular form, the sender is choosing an appropriate medium through which he he or that machine can transfer the ideas to the receiver. That is the basic idea of encoding. So, like the example that we mentioned earlier, the sender is having a plan to have a day out on the next day with his or her friends. So, that particular person wants to convey that idea to the best friend. So, he is making the idea into a message, like he will be including the place they want to go, the timing, the transportation facilities and the activities that they are planning to do on that day. So, after getting that kind of an idea, the sender is encoding that into a message which includes the various informations. Okay. So, the receiver, when he gets the message, can understand what the sender really means. So, that is encoding. Encoding is the conversion of an idea into a form, and at this phase the sender is also choosing the medium of communication as well. So, what is the end result of encoding? After encoding, what we get is message. Okay. Message is the content of communication. So, in message through the message we are conveying the content of the message. So, the information conveyed by words or other signs and symbols can be called as message. Alright. So, in this slide I am using certain words, right, so that you can understand what the concept of message in the process of communication. So, here the message is in the form of a word, but in the beginning of this video I showed you a diagram which shows the process of communication. So, that is a sign, that is a diagram which shows the message. The same thing is conveyed, the different components that are present in the process of communication, but that is in the form of a diagram. So, we can use various forms in order to convey our content. So, that content is known as the message. Alright. So, now we have the channel. So, the sender already encoded the ideas and thoughts that were in his or her mind into a particular form, that is message. Now, the sender has to send this message through a proper medium. So, that medium is known as channel. So, the medium being manner or method used for transmitting or delivering message is known as the channel. As we mentioned earlier, you have a wide range of mediums or methods or channels available for the transferring of data or the information or the idea. You can use words, you can have a face-to-face conversation with the other person in order to convey your ideas, or you can even use an email. So, you can just draft an email and send it to the other person. WhatsApp, the text messages, the phone calls, all these are channels that can be used in the process of communication. The social media itself is a channel where we can convey our messages to the receivers, right. So, the medium, mean, manner or method used for transferring or transmitting or delivering message can be known as the channel. Alright. Now, the next process is decoding. So, the receiver is receiving a message from the sender, but the receiver has to decode the message in order to understand it. So, that process of interpretation of message is known as decoding. So, decoding is the interpretation of the message by the receiver in order to make the symbols meaningful. For example, your best friend has sent you a message, let's meet near the football court or the football ground at 6. So, the message is let's meet near the football ground at 6. Actually, the time is not really specified in this message because it's just 6. It is not mentioned whether it is 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. That is not mentioned. And also, let's meet near the football ground. So, it's just football ground. There are so many football grounds here and there, and the specific football ground is also not mentioned. So, this is the message you are getting. Let's meet near the football ground at 6. It is a message sent by your best friend. So, let's imagine you and your best friend, you are having a habit of going for a jogging every day at 6 a.m. in the morning, and usually you start your jogging from the football ground which is near to your houses. That means both of you and your best friend are having your houses nearby, and there is a football ground which is near to your houses. So, usually at morning 6 a.m. both of you are having a habit of going for a jogging which starts from the football ground which is near to your houses. So, now you are decoding, you are interpreting the message using the prior knowledge and the context. Okay, the message was just let's meet near the football court at 6. but you are applying the prior knowledge and the context, and you can understand that the friend actually means what. You are meeting near the football court, which is near to your houses, and you are planning to meet at 6 a.m. in the morning, and the purpose of the meeting is you are having the habit of going for jogging every day at 6 a.m. in the morning. So that process of interpretation of message by the receiver is termed as decoding. So I hope now this the idea of decoding is clear for you. So let's move into the next component that is there in the process of communication, that is receiver. So receiver is the individual to whom a message is directed. So receiver is the person who is receiving the message that has sent by the sender. Okay. So the receiver can be a listener. If you are listening to a video or a song or a speech, there the receiver is a listener. And if you are reading something, a lecture, a book, even a book is a message, right? The author is a sender who conveys his ideas in the form of a book. So if you are reading a book, you are the receiver who can be called as a reader, or even you can be an observer. And the receiver can be also called as audience or decoder. So the sender can be also termed as encoder, while the receiver can be also termed as decoder. So the receiver is basically the individual who is getting or who is receiving the message that has been sent by the sender. Alright. So the next component in the process of communication is feedback. So feedback is the response or acknowledgement of the receiver to the sender. So after receiving the message, the receiver is decoding the message so that he can understand what the sender really means. So after understanding what the sender means, he has to reply to that message, right? So he is responding or acknowledging the message that he has got from the sender. So that process of response or acknowledgement of the receiver to the sender can be known as feedback. So if the friend who sent you the message, let's meet near the football ground at 6. So obviously you will reply, okay, we'll meet, right? That is a reply or an acknowledgement. So that response or acknowledgement of the receiver to the sender can be termed as feedback. And the feedback increases the effectiveness of the communication, because when the sender is getting the feedback, he can understand that the receiver has perceived the message he has sent. The receiver understood what the sender really meant. So that increases the effectiveness of the communication, and also the feedback makes a communication a two-way process. Okay, the receiver is getting a message, he is decoding it, and he is sending back a feedback. Okay, so that means the communication is now not in one way, but the feedback makes us two-way. And another thing you have to remember is that the point when the receiver sends the feedback to the sender, the receiver turns into a sender. Okay, I will repeat it. The moment when the receiver is sending a feedback to the sender, the receiver turns into a sender, because now the feedback is sent by the receiver. So receiver is turning into a sender. Alright. So now we have the next concept that is involved in the process of communication, that is noise. Noise refers to anything that interferes with the communication process between a speaker and an audience. So noise is the disturbance or the interruptions that could be caused during the process of communication, and it could affect the effectiveness of communication as well. So we have various types of noise, and we will be looking at each of them in detail. So the first type of noise is physical noise. So physical noise is the interference in our environment. So if there is some disturbance that is around us that is causing a disturbance to the entire communication, that can be called as a physical noise. If we are traveling in a bus and one of our friends is calling us, at that point there are so many noises around us, like the noise from the transportation, the horn of the bus, so many disturbances. So that physical noise, the noises that can affect our effective communication, that is caused from the environment or the physical state that is surrounded around us, can be called as the physical noise. And next we have the semantic noise. Semantic is a term which is associated with language. Okay, semantic noise means the use of jargon or technical language. So these kinds of usages, the jargons or technical languages can be avoidable, but we are using these kinds of languages like jargons and technical language in our communication that could affect our communication, because the other person, the receiver, at some point cannot understand what really we are talking, the terms, they cannot recognize the meaning of the different words we are using. So that could affect the effectiveness of communication. So semantic noise is the disturbance that are caused by the language that we use, which affects the communication. They are known as semantic noise. Now you have physiological noise. Physiological noise is the disturbance that are caused due to our physique. If we have some distractions caused by hunger, fatigue, medication, etc., that can also cause disturbance to our communication. So that can be termed as physiological noise. So if we are so much tired, we cannot even properly talk, right? So that kind of tiredness or fatigue, or if we are hunger, we are so much tired, we cannot talk properly, or if we are having a medical condition, or we are having a fever for that matter, or we are taking some medications, all these things can affect the communication. So we cannot properly communicate what we really think in our minds during those times, right? So those kinds of disturbances or distractions that can cause a disturbance in the effectiveness of communication can be termed as physiological noise. And finally, we have psychological noise. Psychological noise can be defined as the qualities in us that affect how we communicate and interpret others. That means we are having certain prejudices or biases, some stereotypes that are there in our mind. So when we are communicating, these type of stereotypes are affecting our communication. We cannot actually understand the person who is talking to us. If we have an idea, if we have a judgment or a stereotype about the person who is talking to us, that could affect our communication, right? So those aspects comes under the psychological noise. And also at times we will be having some mood swings. We will be sad at times, we cannot talk properly. So that kind of things comes under the psychological noise. So we have physical noise, semantic noise, physiological noise and psychological noise. So here you have a picture that defines or that explains the process of communication. Here you have two girls. This girl is the sender and this girl is the receiver. And because why? This girl is sending a message to this girl who is receiving it. That's why this girl is the sender and this girl is the receiver. And the medium used in this particular communication is mobile phone. Okay, the medium used or the channel used in this communication is a mobile phone. And here you have the message that is sent by this girl to this one. And the message is like this: movie starts at 9, can you drive us? That is the message that is sent by the sender to the receiver. So the receiver, after getting this message, interprets or decodes the message and understands it, and then she is giving a feedback to the sender. So the feedback is yes, be there by 8:30. So the sender is sending the receiver a message through the medium mobile phone, and the message is movie starts at 9, can you drive us? After getting this message, the receiver is decoding the message and understands it, and then she is sending a feedback which is yeah, be there by 8:30. So I hope this picture gives you a better understanding about the process of communication. Now we will be looking at a few questions that are being asked in the previous years. The first question was asked in December 2019, and the question goes like this: identify the correct sequence of one-way process of communication from the following sequence. So you have 4 options here. All of them are having different sequences which contains the various components in the process of communication. Please remember, this is one-way process. Why? The term feedback is not mentioned in this options. When feedback is added, the communication becomes two-way. Alright. So we have to identify the correct sequence of one-way process from the options. From what we have learned, we know that the first component in the process of communication is the sender. The sender encodes a message and send it through a channel which is decoded by the receiver. So obviously the correct sequence will be sender, encoding, message, channel, decoding and receiver. So from the options you can choose option B, sender, encoding, message, channel, decoding and receiver. Yeah, the answer is B. So here we have the another question that was asked in December 2019. So the question goes like this. Swapping of encoder decoder roles in communication happens due to, and you have the options cognitive disruptions, semantic noise, feedback analysis and weak channelization. So what is this encoder and decoder? Encoder is the center because it is the center who encodes the message. So encoder is the center and the decoder is the receiver because it is the receiver who decodes the message that is sent by the sender. So we know encoder is center and decoder is the receiver. Now swapping of encoder decoder roles means when did the decoder is turning to an encoder or when did the receiver is becoming a sender. So when did that happens? That happens due to the sending of feedback, right? When the receiver sends a feedback to the sender, there the feedback is a message that is sent by the receiver to the sender. So then the receiver is turning to a sender. So the swapping of encoder decoder roles in communication happens due to feedback analysis. So you can easily choose the answer C, that is feedback analysis. Now we have a question, this is very interesting, which was asked in June 2019 and the question goes like this. A customer writes to a bank, kindly send me a statement of my transactions in my savings bank account A, that is the account, during the last 3 months. In terms of communication, it will be called. So the question is, the customer is writing a request to the bank, which is kindly send me a statement of my transactions in my savings bank account A during the last 3 months. So we have to identify the term of communication that is mentioned here, that is a request. Okay. So let's check the options. We have the options input, message, output, feedback. Input and output has nothing to do with the process of communication. So you can easily eliminate those options, input and output. So now we have the options B and D, which is message and feedback. So in this communication, the sender is the customer and the receiver is the officials in the bank or the bank. So the customer is writing to the bank a request saying that he really wants the statement of transaction in his savings bank account. So you can understand that this is a message that is sent by the customer to the bank. If the bank replies back to the customer, then it becomes feedback. Okay. So the customer is writing a request to the bank, which is the message, and the message is kindly send me a statement of my transactions in my savings bank account A during the last 3 months. This is the message. And if the banker is replying back to the customer, then it becomes feedback. So from the question, we can understand that the term of communication that is used in this question is message. So the option is B. Now you have another interesting question that was asked in June 2019 and it is a match the following question. So the set 1 is having the communication elements and the set 2 is having the description of the process part. So here you have the set 2 which comprises of the various things that is there in our body and also that is equated with the elements in communication. So the set 1 is having sender, receiver, message and medium, and set 2 is having brain, electromagnetic impulses, the central nervous system and the sensory organs. So this is about the communication that happens in between the sensory organs and the brain. So in this process, the center is a sensory organ because it is a sensory organ which sends the message to the brain. So the sender is the sensory organ. And who is the receiver? If the sender is sensory organ, then the receiver is the brain because this message that is sent by the sensory organ is received by the brain. So the receiver is the brain. And what is the message? Message is in the form of electromagnetic impulses. The sensory organ is sending an information to the brain in the form of electromagnetic impulses. So message is electromagnetic impulses. And what is the medium? The medium used for the communication between sensory organs and brain is the central nervous system. So we have A4, B1, C2 and D3. So from the options we have to identify the correct options and that is option C. We have another question that was asked in June 2019, and the question goes like this. Which of the following are barriers to effective communication? So, we have already discussed the term noise and the different types of noise, which can be also termed as a barrier to effective communication because it disturbs the process of communication or it interrupts the process of communication. So, it is a barrier to effective communication. So, from these options we have to identify the barriers to effective communication, and the question is based on the concept noise. So, we have 4 options: physical noise, semantic noise, psychological noise and non-semantic noise. From what we have learned, we already know that we have learned 4 types of noise. They are physical, semantic, psychological and physiological noise, and there is nothing like non-semantic noise. So, you can easily cut off that option and you can choose 1, 2 and 3. 1, 2 and 3 is option B. So, in this video we discussed about the process of communication and we analyzed the various components that are present in the process of communication, and we also studied the various types of noise or the disturbance that can affect the communication. And by the end we also discussed and analyzed a few questions that are being asked from this area in the previous years as well. I hope this video will be helpful for you in your preparation for Nta Ugc NET and JRF paper 1. Thank you.